Okay, I thought I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to just do this because I think it's probably better in the long run. This was the bracket I put together. This wasn't, I had to find this at some supplier yet. This wasn't from Akina, because the bracket that they sell as a Westlake is this big chunky thing here. And that's not what, and mine is put together like this, the one I had in there. But in order to put that together, it would take a 13-inch wide piece. So that's probably wasn't even going to be available. So I made it, assumed that we could get it made out of 12-inch pieces. And you may want to check with Reckworth and see what they would charge you to mill that out. They might have some 4x12s. That's the original Westlake that I've been showing so far. And actually it's actually a little less than that, because I've reduced this, some of that chunkiness of that cord now to something manageable. And your board is 10 inches wide, and 10 inches is 83.3%. So if I just reduce everything to 83% of what it was there, and then I figure on cutting that, you can get 5 of these brackets out of one of them and another 3 out of another, leaving you with about 93 inches. And that's if everything's cut and close, leaving you with 93 inches. And if you saw that board this way and this way and that way, you end up with 12 pieces out of that, and you need 16 total. So you need another 6-foot piece to get another 4 pieces of these 4.5 wide by inch and 5/8. If it's higher, it's good, but inch and 5/8 high by about 28 or 30 long to do this. And these are called braces, these here, and when you start doing this, it's called a bracket. And this, so you would, in order to put these together, you get these pieces here out of what's left over from your second 4x10. But you do need to buy another 6-foot piece, because you'll need another 4 pieces of this, of these 1 5/8. I'm showing the minimum 1 5/8, you know, by 4.5. By about, and this is, I just did some final adjustments on them this way, pulled them back a little bit, made the top a little shorter than the bottom, and then put a little bevel on it, where this is 1 inch here, 1 inch here. And then I jointed this back here like that, and you might look that up. Maybe there's a regular way to do that. It doesn't matter, it's not structural, but that's how I would do it. And these were the old ones. These were these ones that I just talked about, the Westlake, but those were a chunky Westlake that I don't know if we could get anywhere. And then these are the modification here, and I think that can still work. This looks like a close call here, so I almost think that should be carried, frankly. But this was the old one, and this is the new one with the modification. And again, I don't think this looks right going back here without that being carried. So I would just carry that back. And they're 2 separate structures, but I think they're nicely joined this way. It's with it and without it. But I think you could do that, but I don't know if you're going to be able to put those together in a reasonable amount of time, considering, you know, how much you can buy. And you could probably buy something similar to this. I don't know. I would figure on, if you had to buy something like this, I would figure on $100.50 a piece. So what's that? That puts you at $1,200. So you'll have to make a judgment on whether you could put that together. But I like it, frankly. So if you want to try to do it with the 10-inch, I think it can be done. And that's it. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. All right, practically as a continuation of the last film, where we ended up, where we were trying to see if you could build those out of hand-built cedar, and we ended up with these 2 examples, hand-built A and hand-built B. And these are all these ones from Akina, and they all have this good radius here, but the center is offset like this, whereas the one that I had designed, we talked about this in yesterday's film, it had to be made and probably couldn't be. Well, it was like this one here. But so we go to the Thornton as the base bracket, and I considered 4 different alternatives. What we've already shown you 28 by 28 Thornton, okay, and that's basically plan 0 at this point. And even though I went through this whole thing, by the end of it, I'm pretty much settled that the way to go is 2 of these 28 by 28 Thorntons with no additional backboards. But I followed this out regardless and built these additional brackets with backer boards like this. Now this one here is wider than it is higher. This is where I stretched it out a little bit higher just to see what kind of an effect that would be. And then the next thing I did was took these and considered thickening these brackets even further from 1.5 inches to 2 1/4, and ending up with something like this. So this was the heaviest of the 24 by 24 Thorntons, and this was the lightest with just these 1.5 inch backer boards. So this is the different kind of, essentially 4 examples that I horsed around with. And at the end, as I said at the beginning of the film, at the end I like a straight up 28 by 28 Thornton with no additional work or wood beyond that, and you'll see why. I'll try to make that as quick as I can. If we call these A, B, C, and D. So that was the 4 I reviewed, and as I said, I didn't really think any of them amounted to more than the plain 28 by 28 Thornton. And here they are here. There was hand-built A, and that's not going to be done. That was probably the best alternative, but that had to be manufactured somewhere. And there was hand-built B, and neither of those were really viable. And then we go to the Thornton brackets. So from those hand-builts, and those can be done, but it's probably twice the price of anything else. So we go to the Thornton, and these are 24 by 24s with those 1.5 inch backers. You can see how the interface is here. And that thickens those backers to 2 1/4. And then it heightens the whole thing, and then thickens those as well. And out here you really can't tell too much, and these here are going to be, I'm going to run through A, B, C, D, and then with and without this interior bric-a-brac. And at the end of that, because I show some views from the inside, at the end of that, I think probably best, even though going into this film my feeling was that it should continue in here, but from the inside I concluded that that's probably best dropped out and abbreviated or truncated at this point here. So that interface is probably important. But this is A, B, C. And any of these are nice, I think, but you'll see why I didn't. I mean, I really like almost any of them from outside. You know, I favor any of these from outside. But I'm not sure, you know, and really it's the only real complaint I have. Now here they are, the same thing, but going backward. We went up to this heaviest one, D. And then I added this dental and horizontals inside, continuing inside, and then went in reverse. And that was C and B and A with that inside. And from this view, I really like it inside rather than out, rather than not. But I think it's probably more pure not to have it inside. And this is the interface with these various things, A, B, C, and D. Right here. That's that inside. And this is the heavy 2 1/4 backer board, which gives you something for that to die against as far as that goes. But I think that 2 1/4 is just more heavy. I don't see a precedent for that anywhere else. So I think it has to be the 1.5 inches, and then whatever is done here is done here. If it's going to be if you're going to have these backer boards at all. And really, But regardless whether one thinks this looks good or better or not from outside, from inside, the fact of the matter is there's nowhere else that you see that sort of a thing happening. So these are the same 4 different brackets, A, B, C, and D, from the inside by the door. And I don't think there's a reason for those chunkier backer boards in any event. The 1.5" backer boards with the 24 by 28 Thornton. And you can just see where that stuff is just kind of ending right here. And there it gets to die against it. It gets to die against that thicker backboard. And you see this, we go to the 28 by 28 Thorntons, which was where we were before I did all this rigmarole with these. That stuff has a place to die against. So I think really, even after all this, that's the only logical conclusion. But these 4 short little film clips here will run through these same brackets, but not these ones here. But yeah, these ones here too. So there'll be 5 little clips here viewing this with these 5, this original 28 by 28 Thornton, no backer board, and I think that's the way to go. And I'll show you, or you'll see why in the film, and it's at the corner where all this kind of, where all this bric-a-brac comes together at this corner over here to the right. When this film happens, you'll see that, and that's why it was easy for me to say, just eliminate that extra work, that extra material, and that extra detail, because I don't think it's needed. I think here, less is going to be more. But here are the 4 films, or 5, and I think this should do it. We should be good to go, but let me know. You actually may like the other ones, one or more of the other ones, and be willing to live, or think that inside detail at the inside corner is okay. But if it was me making the call, this is what I would settle on here, is the 28 by 28 Thornton with no additional adornment. That is all. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. So first there's the plain 28 by 28 Thornton with no backer boards, and notice that corner in there on each of these. And this is that same one, but with that interior work that I think, probably with Mike, that should go away as it is now. Finally, next then are these 4, starting with A, which, it's nice. I kind of like the detail, and maybe that corner isn't that big of a deal. And B, which was chunkier on those backboards, and we go with the tall, wider one, still with the 1.5" backer boards. And last is the tall one with the thick backer boards. And that is it, and hopefully you'll be able to definitely make the right call. Any of them work for me as far as that goes.